Hey guys, Hot Rod Reverend here, and we're back at it again today with a carburetor swap on the 55 Ford. If you know anything about the car, maybe on my website, you're a subscriber, or you're also a subscriber to my YouTube channel, then you're going to know that this carburetor I've got installed, this Holley 600 CFM, vacuum secondary, mechanical choke, all of that, runs great. There's really not much issue with it. So you're probably thinking, Hot Rod, why would you want to swap carburetors? Everything's going great. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, this is a driver car. Really not a race car per se, although it's fun to take it down the strip and everything else. A couple of reasons to swap carburetors. Number one, I like tinkering. I like making adjustments. I like seeing if something else would make the car go a little bit faster, respond better. All that kind of thing, just tinkered in the garage. Number two, I got a nice little gift certificate from Summit Racing. All of us know Summit. And that was at Fast Fords. Since I was a participant there, everybody who registered got a nice little gift certificate, and I spent that on a carburetor. So let's go over here and take a look. And you've probably seen these online. Summit's been making these carburetors for several years now. You got the float bowls with the sight glass, all that kind of thing. I'm going to go through this in a minute and explain some of the differences, but probably the biggest difference for this car, maybe there's two. The first one is that it's 500 CFM, which is a little bit lower than the Holley I've currently got installed. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference because my Y block's only 301 cubic inches and it's standard stroke. So shouldn't be a real big difference. I am interested to see how it responds. Second thing is this carburetor has an electric choke, as you can see right there. So we're gonna get that wired up too and make sure that's all copacetic and ready to go. So let's get to work. All right, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I'm not into all the crazy unboxings and stuff you see. I think that's kind of craziness, but whatever. I know this stuff's all over YouTube, but I do kind of want to show you what's going on here. Maybe just a couple of differences just very quickly that you got to kind of think about and kind of get set up for when you're swapping. One of the things obviously is going to be the electric choke. I've only ever had manual on this car, so we're going to get that wired up. I am going to use a relay for that, by the way. Secondly is this plumbing, which is obviously very important. But with the way the Holley's designed is that you got the inlet way up here on a Holley up front, and just one, of course, the tube goes back, secondaries feeds those, a secondary bowl. Here, obviously, you got double or dual outlets and one inlet there, and it comes on the passenger side. Now, boy, you can tell right there, this sucker's bent. Boy, isn't that nice out of the box? Maybe we should have had an unboxing. Yeah, all right. And then, of course, you got some fittings, your air cleaner stud. I guess that's to hook up to 3/8. Yeah, that's 3/8 of an inch. A little barb fitting there, something for linkage. And then you've also got what they recommend as an insulator. I am going to do that on the 55 here since I'm running the manifold. I'm going to remove that 1-inch job, especially over the winter months or the cooler months. I think we'll just be fine. I hope this goes without saying. I encourage you, anytime you do, have a fire extinguisher handy, especially when you're working on carburetors and anything fuel related. I think you ought to have at least one fire extinguisher in your shop and your garage. You ought to have one you carry around in your car. Hey, you want to play with fire? Go for it. Me, I'd rather not. I'd rather have safety first here. Flipping the carburetor to the other side, if you look, I don't know if you can tell or not, but the linkage is kind of bent. I wonder if this didn't have anything to do with it. I don't know. Always all kinds of warnings here on linkage parts and everything. Warranty for 90 days. I think I've owned it longer than that when it was shipped. Back in August, I think. And then just something here about making sure there's no binding in the linkage, which obviously is very important. So we're going to remove these. Let's get this prepped before we even take off the current carburetor. That way we can just put this sucker where it goes. One thing I will say about Summit, normally the products or different things I've bought for them have come with pretty good sets of instructions. You can see things look to be pretty thorough here, just flipping through. I'm not going to read all these, and I probably won't refer to everything. I think removing and installing a carburetor ought to be a little bit on the simplistic side, but you do want to go over this, make sure you're familiar with the adjustments or how to adjust, and then what all these ports mean. You know, especially up here up front. Boy, that's extremely important, because this diagram here is going to help you know what you need to hook to for manifold, vacuum, you know, which one's your PCV port, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's extremely important. Just reading through some things here, something to note is verbiage like this: summer carburetor, factory wet float and calibrated, out of the box setting, very close for all adjustments. So that's what I hear about these carburetors. We're going to find that out and see if that's true or not. I'd imagine you have to make some, but some guys say out of the box ready to go. I don't know how you'd get a carburetor ready for every single application, but at any rate, we'll get going here. All right, we got our carburetor removed. You can tell I use white lithium grease, most of my gaskets, all that kind of thing, but kind of standard fare. Wow, how clean that looks in there. Nice. Once I get all the, if it's old gasket off the intake manifold, or if it's my white lithium grease, it's got left over. Once I clean all that off, since I'm going to remove these carburetor studs, I'm going to go ahead and close this off with tape. Just don't want anything happening. I think that's just best practice. You don't want to be fishing stuff out of the intake or having to remove that to get something out of there. So anything can happen. All right, now that we got the old carburetor removed, just a couple of differences between this Holley that I've had on there for a while and then the Summit carb, just to compare the two kind of side by side. Although the Summit looks like it has a larger body, it's actually, man, I wish I had something to weigh this with here in the shop, but boy, it seems like this is at least a couple pounds lighter. What it seems like to me anyway. And you can tell the way the fuel bowls are integrated into the main body. These two, the primary and secondary, obviously we all know Holley's, and then the secondary feed tube as well. This one has a dual feed. The linkage, butterflies and stuff looks not quite the same, but boy, kind of almost a spitting image. If you can see that there. There's going to be some similarities here. What I understand, these do use, these Summit carburetors will use the Holley jets. But here, there's no sight window on these suckers for the fuel bowl at all. You got to pull the plugs on that to see, and of course that's typical. Not a real big issue, in my opinion. But anyway, and of course on the Summit carb, you're going to have the sight windows. You check out how your level is on the fuel bowl. So, all right, let's get to work. All of us gearheads, I hope we don't throw away hardware, we keep it. I've just got a bag of nothing but carburetor studs here that I'm going to go through, see which one fits the best, because I am going to go ahead and just use what Summit sent for a gasket, and you could tell, oh boy, what is it, about 1/2 inch thick or so, and use what they recommend, and even with their torque specifications that they call for too. So I think I've got one sized up here. Oh boy, what is that, about 1.5 inches? I should probably measure that just to see. Yeah, this is right at 1.5 inches. So that should give us quite a bit here. Think about, we go all the way down. And it's going to be close, I think. It's going to be real close. We'll try these out first and see, but I think 1.5 inches, we should be on the money. All right, change of plans, going with 1 3/4 inches. Once I figured out, hey, we'll probably be using a washer. You want the whole body of the nut, the depth of the nut, to at least completely beyond the thread, so we're going to go that deep. All right, now that we got the studs in position and cinched down, I like to test fit that insulator gasket and the carburetor itself. Pop that down, get the carburetor. Do this with one hand. There we go. And that looks pretty good right there with part of the stud we got showing. We'll get the whole nut and a washer. Yeah, that looks real good. Something else that I think is wise to do, especially when you switch carburetors and you're trying to figure out the fuel routing and everything, was just to go ahead and kind of mock up and make sure there's not going to be any issues here with the line. You can see it comes real close. I still got 1/2 inch or so, maybe 3/4 inch from the boss of that coil mount. So looks like we should be pretty good, but you can tell I'm going to have to extend my PCV line all the way up to the front up here. It just needs to hook around or something. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. And then you know, for timing port as well, for ported vacuum for the distributor. Okay, we're going to get and put this carb in position. I'm using some white lithium grease, just not a lot, just a little bit here. And then we'll put this down. And then we'll put some more there, a little bit more grease on top of that insulator, and put our carb in position. All right, Summit has a particular way they want you to torque this down in a particular torque measurement. We're going to go 65. inch-pounds. Got the torque wrench out here, and follow this diagram 1, 2, 3, 4 in a crisscross pattern. It does say progressively, so we're going to creep up on it. Still already, one of the good things about this carburetor is that you can reach all this with the socket, all these nuts. And we just heard that. There it goes. And there we go, we're done. Something tells me this carburetor stud's not going to be quite tall enough. So we'll set this down. And sure enough, got to lengthen the stud. Okay, we're going to put our safety springs, safety return springs back on. You ever go to a drag strip, you got to have 2 of these connected. It's kind of a safety. I had to make sure one breaks, the other one works. But there we go. So that's good. And just double checking the length right here. I know that this needs to be shortened up just a bit. So that's next on the docket, and that means I'm going to have to not just cut this, but also run a die through some of this as well. Give me some more threads. Okay, just to show you real quick, I can't remember where I got this linkage rod, but I know it was from Ford, mid-50s Ford. I can't remember if it was a truck or car, but anyway, I've extended, you can probably see right there where I've cut the new thread with the die right here, 24 pitch. And what happens is that this swivel barrel goes over top here, and I was kind of bottoming it out. I needed maybe about a 1/2 inch or so of play, and of course here's a nut that kind of jams up against it to keep it from twisting. And so I'll probably trim off about a 1/2 inch back here, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, we're going to go ahead and test fit this sucker. Let's make sure that it's about right. Twist this or turn it, I don't know. Probably should be good. We could make some adjustments later on and make sure we got wide open throttle. Probably should have done this first, but go ahead and remove that line because we're going to need to bend a new one. All right, the 3 ports up front, you have ported vacuum, you have the PCV fitting right here, and then over here you have manifold vacuum. Now, some guys like to run manifold vacuum for the vacuum advance. You know, there's a variety of other things people can run vacuum for. And for accessories on your vehicle and all this kind of stuff. I like to run the ported vacuum. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this one. Okay, I'm gonna have to run to the store and get some 5/16 fuel line, hard line to run. But I've got the PCV hooked up here, and then I've also got vacuum advance hooked up. Of course, I could trim some of these lines and stuff. It's not a huge deal to get them where they need to go. But I might wait on that until after we hook up the fuel. I've also got to pull this choke manual choke cable through, so that's not sitting here in the engine bay, and take care of that as well. Summit does give you a little chinchy wire to wire for electric choke. Now, I've not wired one of these up before, but I do know you want to make sure that you've got full 12 volts when your ignition's on, you know, when the engine's running, which I'm just going to go off the key to the ignition, and basically what I'll end up doing is wiring up a relay from juice I've got over here, which will give me power, but the relay won't be triggered until there's power going to the ignition coil. So I'm not going to get my power from the coil, but I am going to trigger the relay that'll send power to the electric choke. And I've got the hot lead, and we're just going to run to the harness here underneath the coil. I've also got the trigger wire for the relay, run all the way through here. We eventually will run under the fresh air tube here for the heater. But what we're going to do is get this relay right here. I've already got the terminals crimped, and then of course heat shrink on there, and I got a fuse on the hot lead that'll go straight over here to battery hot. Of course, this relay won't engage and won't send fire to the coil unless the ignition is on. So we'll get this mounted right next to the starter relay. Okay, we're all wired up. So we've got multimeter sitting here. We're just going to double check and make sure that when all of our wiring's connected, the battery's connected, that we do not have power to the choke once the ignition's off. Just to double check, just to make sure. So we'll, and of course we're showing 0 on the multimeter here. So what we'll do, we'll go turn on the ignition switch, and then make sure we've got full power to the choke. So the ignition switch is on, and we'll go ahead, go to ground, and then go, and there we go. We got full juice to the electric choke. So wiring's good with our relay. Now it's time to do some plumbing, and I'm not going to go into bending lines and making flares and all that kind of thing. There's plenty of stuff to, if you're wanting to learn how to do that on YouTube or online or otherwise. But I will say this, a lot of carburetors have 3/8 of an inch flare fittings for their inlets. Ford in the mid-50s was using 5/16. So you're going to have to get an adapter, and boy, good luck with that at your local hardware store. But I had to order this online, and we got 3/8 male, 5/16 female, and we're going to put that right in there. Running fuel line, nothing exotic here, just 5/16 out of the fuel pump. I still got my filter and my gauge, and then coming up over here, I did come up a little high over top of the intake. Try to keep the heat off the line, the way this sucker runs, and then over here to the rail that feeds the primary and the secondary. One thing I am concerned about is I had a piece of chrome that flaked off. You probably see it right there in the center of the video, center of the screen. I don't know. I've got my fingers crossed on whether or not this thing's going to leak. So we're going to go ahead and switch the camera angle so I can turn on the electric fuel pump and fill the bowl. car. Is anything leaking anywhere? Let's check stuff out here. You probably hear the fuel bowls fill up there. I don't see anything so far. I'll look down here just to double check. One of the reasons to keep a fire extinguisher handy, you never can tell what's going to happen. All right, holding right at about 6 psi and no leaks. So I think we're good, but we'll double check her again when we fire it up the first time and let it get warm. All right, and there she be. Summit carb is installed, plumbed, electric choke is wired, and this has been a long video, so we're going to go ahead and cut this off. Let this be the end of part 1, and then part 2, we'll fire it up and give her initial tune, see how she does on the road.